Oh, how we love T.D. Jakes, the big bishop of the Catholic Church. Don't we just love his preaching, especially when he gets his Catholic slant on the Sabbath? Let's have a listen. Earlier, T.D. Jakes personified sin as the robber, and now again he makes sin the culprit.
Remember what sin did to you.
And the sinner appears as the innocent victim, rather than the transgressor of Yahuwah's law. This is the perfect setup now for the humanist thinking, where man is the center of worship. So naturally, the next statement makes sense to the humanist.
Don't start worshiping the Sabbath day, for Jesus says to us that the Sabbath was not made, that man was not made for the Sabbath, but Sabbath for the man. That the man is the more important issue, not the day, but the man. Are you following what I'm saying to you?
This is the very same lie Satan gave to Eve, that the forbidden fruit was not important, but that she was more important. Man's obedience to Yahuwah is more important. Let's read Genesis, shall we? Now the serpent was more subtle than any beast of the field, which Yahuwah Elohim had made. And he said unto the woman, Yea, has Elohim said, All of you shall not eat of every tree of the garden? And the woman said unto the serpent, We may eat of the fruit of the tree of the garden, but of the fruit of the tree which is in the midst of the garden, Elohim has said, All of you shall not eat of it, neither shall all of you touch it, lest all of you die. And the serpent said unto the woman, All of you shall not surely die. For Elohim does know that in the day all of you eat thereof, then your eyes shall be opened, and all of you shall be as gods, knowing good and evil. And when the woman saw that that tree was good for food, and that it was pleasant to the eyes, and the tree to be desired to make one wise, she took of the fruit thereof, and did eat, and gave also unto her husband with her, and did eat. She would be like God, and Elohim would thus become redundant. In other words, this is pure humanistic idolatry. So, when Yahushua says man was not made for the Sabbath, but Sabbath was made for the man, let's apply that to the Garden of Eden. Apply the same logic. Now, I use this word logic. It is the word we see in John 1:1, which they use to make this Jesus equal God. Logos. In the beginning was Logos, the Word. This is wisdom, reasoning. It is His Word. It is His thinking. And we should apply His thinking to the forbidden fruit in Genesis. Let's ask the question. A. Man was made for the fruit. Or B. The fruit was made for man. Number 2. Man was made for the Sabbath. B. The Sabbath was made for man. 3. All fruit was made for man. Or B. Not all fruit was made for man. 4. Every day was made for man to work. B. Not every day was made for man to work.
Man was not made for the Sabbath, but Sabbath for the man. That the man is the more important issue, not the day, but the man.
We need to remember that Yahushua has said he is the appointed master of the Shabbat. So then the final question to Mr. Jakes becomes, who or what is more important according to Scripture? A. Obeying Yahushua, the master of the Shabbat, is more important, or B. Obeying people who keep Sunday is more important? And the answer is very quickly found in Luke 14:26. If anyone comes to me and does not hate, the proper translation is love less, his father and mother and wife and children and brothers and sisters. That's basically everybody. Yes, and his own life also. He cannot be my disciple. So, Obedience is more important than any man.
The Sabbath represents rest unto the Lord. It represents peace unto the Lord.
Now, once again, the Sabbath is a sign as defined by Yahuwah's definition, not defined by Christiano's philosophy, as a general idea of rest and peace. This idea is some new, modern, recent idea. It is not a sign of peace and rest unto Yahuwah, neither this pagan LORD of T.D. Jakes. It is a continuous tense sign of a continuous tense work of Yahuwah in purifying us, making us Kodesh, morally clean and separate from the world. It is not about a finished work, but a continuous spiritual work by Yahuwah in us. If we truly follow the words of Shaul, who was not at all Torahless, but was continuously being purified unto perfection by Yahuwah, then listen and obey. He says, "But in a great house there are not only vessels of gold and of silver, but also of wood and of earth, and some to honor and some to dishonor. If a man therefore purge himself from these, he shall be a vessel unto honor, purified and meet for the master's use, and prepared unto every good work." The four-letter word that Christianos hates so much. The Sabbath is a reminder that we are purified by Yahuwah for His use, His righteous work. The Sabbath was made for man so that man may remember he is to be used by Yahuwah for His Kodesh set-apart purpose, His righteous work. Yahushua did not come to bring a new Sabbath called 24/7 peace and rest. In fact, He says the opposite. "Think not that I am come to send peace on earth. I came not to send peace, but a sword. For I am come to set a man at variance against his father, and the daughter against her mother, and the daughter-in-law against her mother-in-law. And a man's foes shall be they of his own household." Yahushua was not creating peace within the household of Jerusalem itself, but variance when it came to the pure keeping of the Shabbat, and was promptly put to death by his enemies. Yahushua restored the Shabbat by breaking all the takanot of the Pharisees, which they had burdened upon the Sabbath. For example, not healing on the Sabbath is nowhere restricted by Yahuwah. It is takanot, not Torah. Takanot is man's laws. The Pharisees defined the Sabbath by adding and diminishing it, by defining it as something else, like T.D. Jakes himself. Now, if you do not keep Shabbat for fear of being at variance, for fear of breaking so-called peace, for fear of persecution with your family, then Yahuwah is not your father. He that loves father or mother more than me is not worthy of me, and he that loves son or daughter more than me is not worthy of me, and he that takes not his persecution stake, torture stake, stauros, not a pagan cross that you bought at the jewelry store and wraps around your neck like a good Catholic. No sir, no ma'am. If you don't take up the persecution, he says, you are not worthy of me. Shabbat is a sword that divides one day from the sixth. It sets at variance the world of commerce and entertainment against the day of rest. Shabbat is part of the sword of separation. It is Kodesh, and must be kept Kodesh. Yahushua did not come to replace the seventh-day Sabbath with general earthly peace and rest. He was not employed by the United Nations/Vatican. No, sir, this is the very lie these ecumenical agents want you to believe.
Now understand this. I want to give you just a little bit of Bible class. I don't want to get real heavy, but I want to give you a little bit of Bible class so you can appreciate where I'm going. Most of the artifacts that we are taught about in the Old Testament are shadows and types. They are teaching tools. According to the book of Galatians, the law was a schoolmaster to lead us into grace.
Let's just stop right there. Let's read what the King James Version actually says. Wherefore, the law was our schoolmaster to bring us unto Messiah, not grace. And why? So that we might be justified by faith. False teachers of Christianity love to teach from Galatians and Romans, since the illiterate or inexperienced in the scriptures and Torah do not even know the context of these epistles. Teachers like Jakes use these scriptures endlessly to lead people into the error of lawlessness. Peter has already warned of this, as also in all his, that's referring to Shaul, all his epistles, speaking them of these things, in which are some things hard to be understood. Now, it is only hard for those who are unlearned. He says, which they that are unlearned and unstable wrest. In other words, pervert, they twist the scriptures, as they do also the other scriptures, unto their own destruction. Ye therefore, beloved, seeing ye know these things before, in other words, forewarned is forearmed, beware, lest ye also, being led away with the error of the wicked, lawless, this is the Torahless, and you fall from your own steadfastness. So the error of the lawless, the Torahless, those who say Shaul is preaching that the law is done away with, that they do not have to keep the commands of Yahuwah, such as the Sabbath, etc. Kiefer is saying these are the ones that are twisting the scriptures, not the ones who say we must keep the law. No, the ones who are Torahless, who are in the error of the wicked, like T.D. Jakes and Joseph Prince. So these are the ones who are twisting the scriptures. Now, apparently, they lie and tell you you cannot lose your salvation. Well, if you are a lawless, wicked, Torahless, so-called believer, you are headed for destruction. That is what it says. Now, the steadfastness here, the correct understanding of this word is to have a moral conviction that does not move away from obedience to Yahuwah. Pagan translators call this faithfulness to their goddess deity faith. And you will find so many of these pagan deities introduced into the King James Version. Now let's look at Galatians and peel away the pagan coating, and let's correct those pagan words. In addition, I'll go back one verse. Galatians 3:23. But before emunah, which is the word in Hebrew, which purely means moral conviction. There is no goddess deity faith, no Greek goddess, no. But before moral conviction came, we were kept under the law, shut up unto the moral conviction, which should afterwards be revealed. Wherefore, the law was our schoolmaster to bring us unto Messiah, pagan word is Christ, that we might be justified by moral conviction. But after that moral conviction is come, we are no longer under a schoolmaster. So the we and us here are the fellow Jews Shaul is speaking to, and not to the non-Jews. The law Shaul is referring to as schoolmaster is specifically the law of circumcision within Torah. It is not the whole of Torah. This law of circumcision is done to an 8-day-old male when he cannot even decide to be morally convicted, but which was designed to remind him to attend the school of Torah, to adhere to the law as he grew up, so he would not depart from it. And eventually, when he came to find Messiah, he could obey Torah with moral conviction. Moral conviction is not faith, some material idol on a shelf that you can kiss all over. If you ask Jakes, where is your faith? He will probably try to point to a Catholic image or idol, a Jesus statue on a pagan cross. But he cannot verify his moral conviction by the works of righteousness in Torah. And that is what moral conviction toward Yahuwah is. Instead, Jakes tries to abolish moral conviction toward the Sabbath command by trying to get rid of it. Moral conviction comes after justify. It is used to verify that it is Yahuwah who does purify. It is thus a lie if after justify you try to nullify and falsely claim that moral conviction cannot purify. People, you cannot say here or there is moral conviction. It is something you do. It is an action, an attitude. We could only see the moral conviction revealed when Messiah did something in obedience to his Father. This was an example for all of us, but show us specifically speaking to the Jews and circumcision. This is, however, the moral conviction which has been revealed in verse 23. Yea, a man may say, Thou hast moral conviction, and I have works. Show me thy moral conviction without thy works, and I will show thee my moral conviction by my works. These are works of righteousness. Torah, of course, not works of T.D. Jakes or the Catholic Church. Neither is it Judaism or any other man-made religious denomination. Jacob says, show me your works of righteousness, as opposed to works of flesh. Jacob does not say, hey, you who say I have faith, show me your pagan Jesus, or show me your pagan cross, or pagan church membership, degree of divinity, or Trinity baptism, or christening certificate, etc., etc. Does he? No. Some years ago, the fashion was to start using the pagan ichthos or fish symbol all over again. You know, this apparently proved you were saved. Yeah, right. A pagan sign does not change a pagan Christian whose works remain unrighteous and lawless in rebellion to Yahuwah and his Torah. The renewed everlasting covenant, falsely called the New Testament, is renewed by the newly made covenant of Yahushua in his own blood that has confirmed the covenant. He has given us a new attitude and response to Torah, which binds the everlasting covenant. There is to be a response from us back to Yahuwah. But now, churches teach it's all about receiving. It is twisted into a religion of narcissism. The fact about us being debtors to Messiah is forgotten, and we see no gratitude back to Yahuwah by obedience. Now the Jews of the circumcision were just the same as Christians today. The Jews say they are of the faith and show a certificate of circumcision. I'm a Jew. Whoop-de-doo. The Christians show an idol, a Jesus on the cross, and say, there is grace and there is my faith. Whoop-de-doo. They dissociate themselves, however, from the actual walk of moral conviction, and just hold on to a fake sign without doing any works of righteousness according to Torah. We will see this attitude being addressed here by Shaul. He is referring to a specific law here in Galatians, which is the same law and issue he addressed in parts of the Romans epistle, which Christianity also likes to pervert. Shaul then appears to be a liar. Shaul refers, however, specifically in context to the law of circumcision here, and not directly to Torah as a whole. Romans says, "And shall not uncircumcision, which is by nature, if it fulfill the law, judge thee, who by the letter and circumcision does transgress the law? For he is not a Jew, that is a Yehudi, a worshipper of Yahuwah, which is one outwardly, neither is that circumcision which is outward in the flesh, but he is a Jew which is one inwardly, and circumcision is that of the heart." In other words, the attitude, the moral conviction. It involves actions of obedience in the spirit and not in the letter, whose praise is not of men, but of Elohim. The letter here is the bill or certificate of circumcision, and the apparent proof thereof that is being elevated by the Jew, regardless of whether he actually observes the Torah. This should accompany his certificate or his sign. A bill or certificate of marriage, for instance, does not mean anything if a spouse does not respect it and is an adulterer. Under Torah, a bill of divorce is given to the adulterer, confirming his lack of moral conviction to the sign of marriage. The marriage certificate is now useless and void. Salvation is by a covenant of marriage to Yahuwah, a covenant which should be of trustworthiness. The sign of circumcision is not evil or wrong. It only cannot be used to justify anyone and make them righteous. It is useless if it is without moral conviction, which means works of righteousness are actually being done to fulfill, or more accurately, to verify that sign. This would be an appearance of the religion of Yahuwah, but denying the power of actually doing it, having a form of piety, but denying the power thereof. From such, turn away. Kind of like trusting in your pagan Christian bumper sticker to get you home, while you're a wretched sinner driving drunk on the road. Let's go back to Galatians to prove what I am saying is true. O foolish Galatians, who hath bewitched you, that ye should not obey the truth? Not obey. Did you read that? Not obey. Obedience. A work of righteousness. Not obey the truth, before whose eyes Messiah Yahushua hath been evidently set forth, impaled on the stake among you. This only would I learn of you. Received ye the Spirit by the works of the law, or by the hearing of moral conviction? Are ye so foolish? Having begun in the Spirit, are ye now made perfect by the flesh? In other words, circumcision. You see, it is about obedience to Torah, right? Moral conviction. When you hear about the moral conviction of the Son, then you should want to do the same. You would want to obey Yahuwah's commands, not Jake's Catholic commands by his own fleshly mind, devoid of spiritual works of righteousness. Shaul does not say the goddess faith replaces the law, nor is he saying the whole Torah is replaced with moral conviction. Do we then overthrow the law by this moral conviction? By no means. On the contrary, we uphold the law, uphold the law. He is saying moral conviction now establishes all of Torah. We keep it, uphold it, defend it, guard it. Remember the word Shema in the Garden of Eden. Adam had to keep the garden. It is a work of righteousness to Yahuwah. So when Shaul speaks about the law here in Galatians, it is the law of the covenant of circumcision specifically that he is referring to. In the context of the Jewish circumcision crowd, they were trusting in a sign which represented a pruning back of the flesh. Yet the flesh had not been cut back if the person was still sinning. The spiritual circumcision, however, will result in a true pruning back of the flesh, mortifying the deeds of the body, putting to death the lusts of the flesh. Therefore, brethren, we are debtors not to the flesh to live after the flesh. For if you live after the flesh, ye shall die. But if ye through the Spirit do mortify the deeds of the body, ye shall live. For as many as are led by the Spirit of Elohim, they are the sons of Elohim. So the Torah remains. It is only the way it is administered and the way that it is obeyed. It has been strengthened by the renewal of the covenant, the everlasting covenant, and we now have moral conviction. Hebrews tells us, for finding fault with them, he saith, Behold, the days come, saith Yahuwah, when I will make a new covenant with the house of Israel and with the house of Judah. What was wrong? Was it the everlasting covenant? No, it was the people. They had the fault. And Yahuwah was renewing their covenant with that everlasting faultless covenant. He says here, not according to the covenant that I made with their fathers in the day when I took them by the hand to lead them out of the land of Egypt, because they continued not in my covenant, and I regarded them not, saith Yahuwah. For this is the covenant that I will make with the house of Israel. After those days, saith Yahuwah, I will put my laws into their mind, and write them in their hearts. Did you see that? And I will be to them Elohim. Now, the King James Version puts it, will be to them a guard. Well, it is, I will be to them Elohim. That is the original text in the Hebrew. This is where you can see the corruption from the Hebrew text into the Greek. Yahuwah is not a sky deity. And he says, I shall be Elohim to them, and they shall be to me a people. But the point I want to focus on is this covenant does not do away with his law, because it is a renewal of the everlasting covenant. The idea is to restore the people to his law by putting it in their hearts so that they will do it, and put it in their minds so that they will think about it. And now the next part here is a prophetic sentence. It has not been completely fulfilled, since we are still teaching. And they shall not teach every man his neighbor, and every man his brother, saying, Know Yahuwah, for all shall know me, from the least to the greatest. This is the ultimate goal of the restoration or renewal of the everlasting covenant. No one will need to learn his Torah anymore, because it will be completely known. As I say, this has not been fulfilled yet. Then he says, For I will be kind. Now, not merciful. This is another goddess, mercy. The word is kind, and sometimes even it means that Yahuwah is loyal in his covenant loyalty. So Yahuwah is kind to their unrighteousness, and he will renew the covenant and be loyal in that covenant as long as we are loyal. A covenant involves two people, just as a marriage. When one commits adultery, the covenant is broken and the other one has the right to leave. The conditions of Yahuwah is that you must obey him. And their sins and their iniquities will I remember no more. That is referring to their past sin. As for the future, one should not be committing spiritual adultery. In that he saith, a new covenant, he hath made the first old. Now that which decayeth and waxeth old is ready to vanish away. Now this is when Christianity gets it all wrong. They will see a new covenant written there and immediately say, well, you're lying. It's not a renewed covenant. It's a new covenant which replaces the old. That means his law has been done away with. But I have just shown you that in verse 10, he says he will make his law be put on their minds and in their hearts through the covenant, the new covenant. So what has changed is the administration of his everlasting covenant, the way that his everlasting covenant is applied to the mindset and the heart. That has changed, and the past administration has faded away, not his Torah. So don't listen to wolves who will lie to you. This is Hebrews, people. This is Shaul speaking to you. Shaul is telling you Yahuwah's new covenant, which renews the everlasting covenant. The purpose of it is to put his Torah in your mind and on your heart so that you can establish or do his law, as he says in Romans. Many new covenants, in fact, have been made by Yahuwah in the past. This is nothing new. And never ever were any of these made to replace his Torah, but rather to restore his people back to his everlasting Torah covenant. That is the purpose. Here is an example. During the reign of King Josiah, the book of the law is found. And the king went up into the house of the master Yahuwah, and all the men of Judah, and all the inhabitants of Jerusalem with him, and the priests, and the prophets, and all the people, both small and great. There we go again, the least and the great. We saw this in Hebrews as well. This is the purpose. Everybody must be restored in his everlasting covenant. And Josiah read in their ears all the words of the book of the what? Covenant. But wait a minute. This is an old covenant that was found in the dust. Correct. This is the everlasting covenant of the book of the law, which was found in the house of the master Yahuwah. And the king stood by a pillar and made a covenant. Wait a minute. He made a covenant? But he's already found the book of the covenant. Yeah, he's renewing the covenant before the Master Yahuwah, to walk after the Master Yahuwah, and to keep his commandments and his declarations and his statutes with all their heart and all their soul, to perform the words of this covenant, that they were written in this book. And all the people stood to the covenant. In other words, they stood to the restoration back to the everlasting covenant. Now, where else have we seen these words? With their heart and all their soul. Well, yeah, Yahushua, the Messiah, has repeated the law, the great commandment, the first commandment of Yahuwah. It is his everlasting covenant, Torah, law. So what is it doing here if it is a so-called New Testament, of Jesus? No. Yahushua, Messiah, is restoring us to Torah, the everlasting covenant. He says unto the man, Thou shalt love the Master Yahuwah, thy Elohim, not the Lord your God, as the Christians say. It is Yahuwah who is Master. your Almighty Elohim with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your mind. This is the first and great commandment. And where is Yahushua referencing his idea from? Is it some new idea or some new covenant? No, it is from Deuteronomy, from the book of the law, which is supposedly done away with. He says, to love the Master Yahuwah your Elohim, and to serve him with all your heart and with all your soul. And before that he says, and it shall come to pass, if you shall hearken diligently unto my commandments, which I command you this day. So, we have the Christians who come up with love. Love, they define it, their own love. Love your Potter's House Church. Love your T.D. Jakes lying Pastor Wolf, Just love everybody. Not tell them they're wrong, Just love them to death. Love them all the way to Gehenna. No. If you love them, you will tell them what is wrong. You will tell them to obey Yahuwah, to hearken diligently to his commandments. Love is keeping his commandments, as Yahushua has said. For this is love. This is the definition of love, not what T.D. Jakes or anybody else than the Catholic Harlot Church says. This is love, that we keep his commandments. And his commandments are not grievous. They're not bondage. They are not legalism. They are Yahuwah's way to keep you out of destruction. How can they be grievous?